Howdy out there, rock and rollers. Welcome to the 140th episode of the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast. Brought to you by me, your host, Mac B. the Wolf, and I will be joined, as always, by my partner in crime, Gary Action Jackson from the East Coast of the United States of America. And we got to thank you for tuning in lately, folks. You've been doing great work for us. Our downloads have been great. Our streams have been great. And we really appreciate that from you. Episode 139 was about our trek to Europe to see Iron Maiden on the Days of Future Past tour. Jackson's first 2 Iron Maiden concerts ever. We're in Amsterdam and Antwerp, checking out the boys on that amazing tour that they're doing right now. Not to mention the fun that happened in the hotel bar in Antwerp, where we got to see and meet members of the band. If you haven't listened to that one yet, you got to go check out episode 139. But between that episode and this one, we actually released a new sidecast called First Concert Memories, where we're talking to big fans about the first time they saw their favorite band or a band that changed their lives. And on our first ever episode, we were fortunate enough to have our Pantheon podcast brothers, Tom and Zeus, from the world's #1 rated KISS podcast, Shout It Out Loudcast, to talk about the first time they saw KISS live. And what made this one even more special, folks, is that Tom saw the Hot in the Shade Tour 1990. Jackson and I saw the Revenge Tour 92. And Zeus saw the Alive Worldwide Tour in 1996. So it wasn't just one show you're getting a recap of. It was 3 shows from 3 different tours. We had great response to that, and we're so proud of it. Thank you so much for downloading. And if you haven't, hey, make sure you go check that one out. This week, we're hitting another hard rock album that is having a major milestone this year, turning 40, and that's Motley Crue's Shout at the Devil. Now, a lot of big hard rock and heavy metal albums are having big anniversaries this year, right? Iron Maiden's Peace of Mind we reviewed back in March. Dio's first album, Holy Diver, we reviewed that back in May. Metallica's Kill 'Em All we just did recently with Jay from The Hook Rocks. Quiet Riot's Metal Health we reviewed earlier this year. Def Leppard's Pyromania we reviewed a few years ago because it was big for us growing up. This is one, though, that was big, but also still a little bit underground. I mean, it sold 4 million in the U.S. and got some airtime on MTV. But because of the name Shout at the Devil and the images of the band and the videos, Motley Crue obviously wasn't for everyone, but that was their intention. Nikki Sixx wanted to be famous. So he did everything he could, including the name Motley Crue, to gain them fame, to gain them attention, whether it be positive or negative. And some of the songs on the album you knew were going to, well, upset parents, right? Bastard. God Bless the Children of the Beast. Shout at the Devil. Danger. I mean, these are things that young teenagers who are having a hard time, they're going to gravitate to. But parents, not so much. And maybe even record companies, record distributors, MTV. Some people are going to be turned off by this stuff, but that is what Motley Crue's intention was. Let's make a splash. Let's get people to know us. Good, bad, or indifferent, if you know us, we're famous, and we're going to get on bills. We're going to start touring, making money, which they will blow as quickly as they make it on drugs and girls and damaging hotel rooms, crashing cars, whatever. So we're going to dive into that here very shortly. Just a quick bit of business here, though. We'd love to mention that we are proud members of the Pantheon podcast family, a network of about 100 different shows, all music related, not all rock and roll. There's really something in there for everyone. And the great news is that Metallica is releasing their official The Metallica Report podcast through Pantheon starting this week. Really excited about that, and we hope to have more news about that here very soon. But you can check out pantheonpodcast.com or follow at pantheonpods. And of course, we want to mention our incredible sponsor, rarevinyl.com. Guys, I know that there are a lot of record collectors out there. And rarevinyl.com has over 250,000 items in stock. So you can go to rarevinyl.com and use code UGLY, UGLY, to take 10% off your orders. Now, they're based in the UK, but they ship all around the world. And we've seen a lot of folks ordering lately. That's great. That's a big help to our show. But it's not just a help to us. It's a help to you and your record collection to save 10% off. It's a one-time code, so you may want to go buy a bunch of things instead of just one, or find that particularly hard to find expensive item. Then use code UGLY and get that shipped to you. You can trust these folks. They do an amazing job of procuring, taking care of this stuff, and then shipping it to you wherever you are. So if you're looking for something by Motley Crue, you're looking for albums, you're looking for posters, you're looking for point-of-sale merch, you're looking for tour books, singles, whatever it may be, go to rarevinyl.com. Use the code UGLY. Save yourself 10% on whatever you buy one time. Now back to Motley Crue. I have to admit, at this point in my life, I was about 10 years old when this came out. Was not a Motley Crue fan. Just that name, Shout of the Devil, made me nervous. I knew, my mom's not going to let me listen to that. And I don't know if I even really want to. I was kind of a goody two-shoes when I was 10 years old. And some of the burnouts were the ones who were wearing Motley Crue t-shirts. I'm like, who are these people? I don't even want to be like them, right? But as you grow up, your tastes change. And by the time Dr. Feelgood came out, everyone knew who Motley Crue were. And thanks to some clean production by Bob Rock and the boys kind of cleaning up their act a bit, that was their big success. Over 6 million sold. 4 or 5 big radio hits off that album, and that cemented their status as rock legends and allows them to really kind of keep touring today. But it was this album, past what was basically the demo of the first album. Old adage is you've got your whole life to write your first album, but you only got 6 months to write the next one. Well, they may have had a little bit longer than that, but if this was a total bomb, it could have been the end of Motley Crue. However, it was not, and thanks to MTV, and we'll get into the videos and the songs, it was a success. Now, you'll also hear us denigrating this a bit. Motley Crue is not known for their musicianship. Motley Crue is not known for their amazing lyrics or songwriting. They're known for punch, and they're known for their image and creating a scene. And that's exactly what you get here with Shout at the Devil. They're creating a scene, right? They're creating controversy. And from that, they're getting press. And when you get press, then you get to be on TV, then you get to go do tours, then you sell more records. And that's exactly the story of Motley Crue. Not the most talented band, but an incredibly famous, well-known band and beloved by a hardcore group of fans. And they're still going today, folks. They're selling out stadiums around the world. Yes, it's a co-headlining bill and they need a little help from the undercard as well. But hey, they're still doing it. They're still on private planes. They're still playing to tens of thousands of people, even if they need a little help piping the music in behind them. Let's not focus on that, though. I do apologize. I sound like I'm in a cave for part of this. Had some audio difficulties. I appreciate you bearing with me on that. We will get that fixed. So let's get into Shout at the Devil by Motley Crue as it turns 40 right here on The Wolf. All right, so it was your idea to do Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil, wasn't it, Jackson?
I believe so, yes.
And so, I mean, I know it's turning 40 this year. September 23rd, 1983 is when it was released. So it's, it's a month, maybe a little more away as we're recording this. Was this one that you owned as a young man?
I own this one on a bootleg tape somewhere.
Okay.
But I do remember looking through this, they were saying that the original artwork for it was the pentagram, the black pentagram.
Right.
I don't ever remember that. I
never saw that.
Yeah, I guess that was a real quick first pressing. I remember the 4 pictures, and just remember thinking was Vince was that a woman or what's going on here? And then Mick Mars looked like some kind of monster person. I know.
And then Nikki has the name Nikki, so you're like, oh, that's a girl with their hair all teased up. They got a chick in their band, really?
Yeah,
pretty tough for a chick. Hell no.
And of course, it was called Shout at the Devil. So right off the bat, you knew that was you couldn't bring this home, or you definitely couldn't listen to it without headphones. And I think it just fed into the whole Motley Crue legend that was being built because, I mean, as we've discussed a million times, we didn't have the internet back then, so you kind of just knew bits and pieces. I think these guys are crazy, and there's all they do is party all the time. So I think all of that contributed to the kind of the legend of this record.
Yeah, but you didn't have it when you were 10 or 11 when it came out. You got it in high school, right?
Correct. Yeah. So I mean, really, all I knew about this was probably, and I'm trying to remember the MTV days. I remember seeing Looks to Kill, but it wasn't in heavy rotation. It was kind of on at night. They didn't play this during the day.
Yeah.
And so again, it was what if I stay up late enough, maybe I can see something that's going on here. But yeah, no, I never had a copy of it at the beginning because I would have been thrown out of the house.
Yeah, and I wasn't into it at all, and I never saw it on TV. I think Smoking in the Boys' Room was the first time I saw Motley Crue on MTV.
Okay.
Which would have been like 1985. Right? They were pretty good, Motley Crue, about hitting all the odd years in the 80s. They did records like, Too Fast for Love was 81, Shout at the Devil 83, Theater of Pain's 85, 87 was Girls, 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 and 89 was Dr. Feelgood.
Mm-hmm.
And then 91, when we went to college, was Decade of Decadence. And I remember being at the record store and Harding bought Decade of Decadence. I'm like, really? You're buying Motley Crue's best stuff? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and I think that's the one they re-recorded, Home Sweet Home, and so I think that was a big hit again.
Okay.
And so I could see how people would say, "Oh, I remember that song, but I never had Theater of Pain, so I'll just go ahead and buy the hits and go from there."
Well, so my exposure being in the lily white suburbs and listening to Men at Work and Duran Duran and Michael Jackson in 1983, Lionel Richie, stuff like that. That's what I was into when I was 9 and 10 years old in 1983. But I went to Hanover basketball camp in Hanover, Indiana, which is where Woody Harrelson went to school. Okay. And, you don't just get the upper middle class kids from the suburbs. You get all sorts of kids who can play basketball from all over Indiana and Kentucky, stuff like that. So you bump into some kids whose parents really don't take an active role in their lives, except go to camp so I can get rid of you for a week, shut up, and I would see kids with the Motley Crue t-shirts on there. And I remember seeing not the pentagram cover, but the Four Faces, the quote unquote alternative cover, which I think probably outsold the pentagram cover like 10-1 or something. And yeah, you're right. You would see them with their hair all teased up and like they got makeup on their face or something on their face. Vince is a platinum blonde, Debbie Harry looking dude. Nikki's name's Nikki. That's bizarre. Mick is not cute, and I'm like, who are these guys? And why do their parents let them wear these kind of t-shirts? Still a mama's boy.
Yeah. And the thing was, you were mentioning makeup, but it wasn't like Kiss makeup. It wasn't like a different character. It was you were just trying to look, I don't know, tough, I guess is what it was with like war paint or something.
Well, Nicky wore the eye black when he played high school football. So he's like, yeah, this is what it's about, right?
Yeah.
Going in to kick some ass, right?
I can't imagine Nikki Sixx playing football, but okay, cool. And then, so that was always the thing to me was I didn't know what they were trying to do. Were they trying to look, because again, they were very frail looking people. Like Tommy he's a tall dude, but I mean, right. I think he weighed 97 pounds soaking wet back
exactly,
then. Yeah. And then especially when you watch the Too Young for Love video, like he is very, very, the height difference is way off, even with Mick in boots.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just this very gaunt looking person with giant hair and just kind of a maniac.
Well, the fact of the matter is, Motley Crue were never really about musicianship or even really the music. It's going to be hard, it's going to be fast, but it was always about the spectacle. I mean, you mentioned Kiss, and in doing our recent First Concert Memories, one of the tags that I put on the show was seeing Kiss is important. It's a lot more important than just hearing the albums, right? Seeing them perform live with the bombast and the pyro and them flying through the air and the Ace, with the smoking guitar and all that kind of stuff. The drum riser going up 40 feet in the air. That's part of the show. And if you don't see that or you don't understand that, you don't get Kiss, right? And that was Motley Crue's thing. They used to have low rent pyro at their shows, like even in club shows in the 70s or, when Nicky was in London or whatever, acts he was in before that, he would light his boots on fire. He had that, that gel that like stunt people use. Yeah. And Vince would light them on fire and stuff like that. Like it was always, part of the show, which is very LA too. Like, the entertainment spectacle and the way they dressed. And I'm looking at these videos and I'm like, these videos must have been huge for them because I love Looks to Kill. I think it's a great killer song, but like the rest of the album, it's not amazing music. And if you look at the lyrics, oh my God, it makes Quiet Riot look like geniuses, right? I mean, you think about the other metal albums or hard rock albums that came out in 83, like Pyromania, which we did a couple years ago, like Quiet Riot's Mental Health, which we did earlier this year, like, well, we did Metallica's Kill 'Em All, you know, Iron Maiden's Peace of Mind. That's kind of like the intelligent metal, and this is just like, you're a dumb kid, but here's some dumb shit for you to listen to, basically.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head here. And you had mentioned in text conversations before this that you were not a big fan of this record, and I remember but then I'm looking at this thing. It sold 4 million copies.
Yeah, 200,000 in like the first 2 weeks. Yeah. Like sold out the first pressing. Like, huh? Really?
This is Baby Shark for adults.
Or for redneck teenagers.
Well, yeah. Because when you look at all of these songs, the title is the chorus. So after you've listened to this once, you already know what's happening, and you can be in the Camaro singing along to these songs very, very quickly. There's not a lot going on here. It's very basic. The riffs all kind of sound the same, so it's very familiar. You can get into this a lot easier than you can Metallica. There is no 7-minute opus here. Right, yeah, and you're not talking about anything too heavy, and the riffs are pretty accessible and pretty playable. Like if you're wannabe dirtbag guitar player, you'll hear this stuff. You're like, this is possible. This is achievable. Yeah. Correct. Yeah, here's a garage band that made it. I mean, do you listen to Shout at the Devil? Okay, yeah, I got that. I mean, I can chant along with that. And if you were to see them live, like you said, I'm ready to go here. I'm ready to sing along with the band. There's nothing too complicated here. To me, it sounds like Mick had one pedal and one guitar. Yeah, and just let it rip through the whole record.
Pretty much, and he's like the best musician, basically. I mean, of the crew. I mean, he's a lot older than those guys. I mean, like a decade older or more. And now I think Tommy is actually a heck of a drummer.
Yes.
Delivers a hell of a beat and keeps these things chugging. And visually, he's great too. I mean, you see him, he's always spinning his sticks or whipping them around the back of his head, that kind of stuff. So, like, visually, and you look at the videos, Motley Crue, there's something to behold there. There's something to watch there. They've got the cool outfits. They're strutting around stage. They're doing poses and stuff like that. Vince has got his shirt off for the ladies, and there's something to see. But if you take that all away and you turn it down, like it's one of those albums. It's not music. It sounds better the louder it is. But like last night, I was listening to it again just to like do some extra notes for the show. So I've got it turned down in bed, and I'm just kind of listening without it at the level that you usually hear this thing. And I'm like, yeah, the music on its own is just not that great. And that's why they have pentagrams, on the album to create some controversy, Mm-hmm. It's like when the PMRC came along, they said, we're going to put a sticker on here that says bad language. Nicky's like, yeah, put it on there, that'll help sell the record, So the first, and we always do this, we kind of give a background of where the band was heading into this album and at the end kind of where they would go. So they're 81 Too Fast for Love, which was, basically a demo that they created that started a bidding war over their quote unquote talent in LA. And they got like a millions of dollars record contract from this demo, but they didn't even really re-record it. Most of Too Fast for Love was on that demo. And then they go out and they start touring with people. And they famously got kicked off the Kiss's Creatures of the Night tour by Gene Simmons because of their terrible, awful behavior, But that was what they were about. Like, we are rock stars. We're not here to like give a great show and then make sure we get rest for the next night. No, the show is the excuse to go do drugs and bang out chicks. And that's all they did, And you saw the movie The Dirt where they're like, peeing on the, at the pool and, just anything nasty, anything that'll get a headline, anything that'll outgross themselves or Ozzy, they're up for, It wasn't about, let's make sure we're good at playing our instruments. No, that never occurred to them. That's not even in the car.
And it's interesting because the producer, Tom Werman, I heard an interview with him, and he was talking about how it was rough to record the vocals with Vince because he's not a great singer. He's got a very unique voice. I think he sings a lot from his nose and like a traditional
his
singer.
stomach,
Yeah, like you're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently, like he would just like it was just rough shape all the time. Like he'd try to get him as early as possible because he was just gonna. He had to have that little bit of window when he would sober up, but before he would get drunk again. So it was tough. He said he would record 3 tracks, like 3 of the same song, and then kind of splice that together to get the best of everything.
Gotcha.
And he said usually as well, one side note here, he was saying that most singers can get done in about an hour of the track done, but put together. Vince would take longer than that, but he was said working with Robin Zander from Cheap Trick, he could knock it out in like 10 minutes. He was just phenomenal.
Well, it's interesting that Robin and Rick Nielsen eventually did like backing vocals on some of their albums down the road here. Like, why were they backing it up? I mean, I know that the boys can't really sing. That was one of my notes. It's like, when you hear that shout, you really can hear like Tommy and Nikki like scream and shout. They're not singing. They're just kind of screaming, shout. And that's basically their backup, quote unquote, singing throughout the album. So eventually they had to bring in people who can actually sing so the album would sound better.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things too that maybe is the kind of the red badge of courage on this one is that it does sound so raw. It sounds like guys in a garage somewhere recording this. I mean, I know this is the second album, but if you told me this was the debut album and they only had $10,000 to get it done, I'd say that sounds about right. It almost sounds like they recorded all in one day.
Well, and I love people who are now like, Vince is out on the stadium tour. It's like, oh, Vince can't sing anymore. I'm like, anymore? he can never sing, and now it's just his voice is shot. That's all.
Right. And that's what they were saying too. People would get all bent out of shape because, you listen to bands, like the Eagles, and they could do it. It sounds exactly like it does on the record. Motley Crue was never going to sound like that because, you're right. He can't. What you hear on the record is basically studio wizardry of, just taking. As I think he said at the beginning 3, but you probably end up with 5 or 6 tracks of the same record and then just cobbling that together. You're never going to get that live.
No, and who cares? Because they're blowing stuff up and there's lights going on. You got Tommy doing his thing.
You're really you're waiting for the chorus. That's the thing. Like blah 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 blah, and then looks that she's got the looks to kill. That's what you're waiting for, the familiar part that you can yell back. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Stop my heart. And that's So what I didn't realize that Nicky crashed his Porsche. It wasn't his Porsche. It was his friend's Porsche who he stole. While he was wasted, crashed his Porsche, and he hurt his shoulder really bad, and that's when he first got into painkillers, which would kind of help lead to his heroin addiction. And Demi Moore, who was married, I guess, to her first husband, Scotty Moore, a guitar player at the time, was one like, you need to go to AA. And of course, at the time, that fell on deaf ears. I was going to say that. He said, and you need to mind your own business because I got this. Whoever you are, lady, I've never seen in one movie. Or I saw Blame It on Rio, so I've seen your tits, and so that's all I need, right? The fact that any of them are still alive is a miracle. Shocking. It's shocking. How can the original member of the Black Sabbath and Motley Crue all still be alive? It makes no sense to me whatsoever. Because they were trying, and I never knew that story about the Porsche either until I was looking at this record. They were trying very hard to not be alive, to kill themselves. Yeah, absolutely. They were. The thing about the Monsters of Rock, where nobody wanted them because they were just absolute animals, and they had to bring them in separately and like put the trailer to the side or even lift it into the air or something, so they could not be around anyone else. But the problem was at that point in time they were so big. We're not kicking them off this show. It's going to be a disaster. Well, it was working. I mean, this press and this bad boy image, it was working. And then you look at the titles of their songs and you're like, Bastard, Shout at the Devil, Knock 'em Dead Kid, Danger. This is going to appeal to the teenagers, especially to the wayward teenagers. So they're like, yeah, this is my band, man. Well, like, look at them. They're tough. They like fight. They like screw. They do drugs. Yeah, okay, but can they play? We're not worried about that. Yeah, exactly. And then they toured with Ozzy Oxbourne, which didn't help their like cleaning themselves up. But something I didn't know is that while on that tour with Ozzy,
apparently the other members of the band were thinking about getting rid of Mick because, they're thinking, well, we need more of a Eddie Van Halen, Yngwie Malmsteen kind of guy to be in the band. And Mick can't really play that well. Not to mention, he's no fun on the road, right? Like, he goes to his hotel room and drinks a bunch of vodka because his back's killing him. He's not out helping him get more girls. He's not out doing, coke till 7 a.m. He might do it till midnight, but he's not doing it till 7 a.m. like the rest of them. Like, he's off doing his own thing. And it was Bob Daisy who did, and Dio, Dio's first album was 1983, but he was Ozzy's bassist, I guess, at the time. He's like, don't fix something that isn't broken. Don't kick out Mick just because you could use a flashier guitar player or someone who's better looking. It works. He's helping you make your sound, which he did and has. So, I guess they stuck with Mick, which they probably should have.
And to think about that is very interesting. Somebody like, I think they mentioned Yngwie Malmsteen, that just wouldn't have worked. I mean, Mick is the heart and soul. I mean, he is the Motley Crue sound. He's chunky when he needs to be. He puts his solo in. I mean, he is the sound of this band. To have somebody who was up there just shredding, I don't think would have worked because the rest of the music didn't fit with that.
Didn't fit that, yeah. And when we talk about the music, for the most part, Nicky writes all the music for Motley Crue.
Right.
And really all the lyrics too, which is interesting because his bass doesn't really come through like, ooh, he's playing some sick bass on this. It's like he's not even there most of the time. I think he's playing with Mick a lot, and that's how they formed their sound. And created a lot of these songs was he and Mick together. But I mean, I give Nicky credit. I think he's actually pretty bright. He does a lot of dumb shit, and he really abused the hell out of himself and others. But I give him intelligence points, and obviously writing all these songs is a thing, But I mean, the lyrics, man, my God,
well, again, we're still early in the game here. Not that he would get that prolific later on, but
they would improve.
Yeah, just a dude who he wanted to be famous, and he knew that he had the desire. He just had to find the people to take him there.
Exactly. Yeah, take him to the top, right?
Correct. And I think Mick was a big part of that. I mean, I don't know how true the dirt was, but I do love that where he, the scene where they meet Mick and they've got that other guy and he's like, he's just not going to make it. And so he just cranks it up and just blows the guy out of there. And then Tommy's like, how old are you anyway? Go fuck yourself. Because I think
Tommy's like 17 or something.
Yeah. And that was always the big thing too, is that, Tommy was 17, but Vince was only a year older. So they were both really young. And I think that what's Mick, like, he was born in 51. So I think he was 10 years older than Vince and 11 years older than Tommy. So yeah, at that point in time, you might as well have been 100.
Exactly. Yeah. You're 30 when they're 19, something like that. But
right.
Whatever. Not to mention he looks older because he's in so much pain from his back condition.
Right. And I think that was something that he kind of, like, I think they knew that, obviously they knew that he had that condition, but I think he hid the fact for a long time how much pain he was in and what a struggle it was, because he had spent so long in shitty bands trying to make it. He was just going to shut his mouth and go along with that to stay on board this train.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Hey, this is Tom and Zeus from Shout It Out Loudcast, and you are listening to the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast.
All right, now let's get into these songs. I don't want to take all day of this because we don't have to dive real deep on those songs. And this is one that I never owned. Honestly, I've only owned Motley Crue Best Of records. I eventually got Decade of Decadence. I think I got it used at the Park Avenue CDs. And then a decade or however long it was later, I got Red, White, and Crue, which is a double best of.
Yeah.
The first one is really the only one you need. The second one has maybe Anarchy in the UK and some stuff from like the first Greatest Hits album or something like that. But then it's like all the stuff, the Karabi stuff and the stuff they did in the late 90s, New Tattoo and stuff like that, which... It may not be horrible music, but it wasn't popular, and I don't know it that well.
Yeah.
So to me, you really only need that first one. But still, it'll expose you to some of their latter-day stuff. That's a good one for the collection of things. But they start off with In the Beginning, which is And it's written by Jeff Workman, who was a producer from England, I think from Liverpool, worked with a lot of big-time bands over the years. I don't know why he made this for them, because, like you said, Tom Werman was their producer. And Tom Werman, man, I mean, he was the goods as far as a hard rock producer goes. Mm-hmm. I mean, we talked about him on this show before, and he was a smart guy and a bachelor's and an MBA from Columbia. And he discovered, I mean, he sent a letter to Clive Davis at CBS, and he landed a job at Epic. And his discoveries included Boston, Cheap Trick, REO Speedwagon, and Ted Nugent. That's who he brought to the record company. He also tried to bring KISS, Lynyrd Skynyrd, and Rush to Epic, but they decided, no, we don't want to work with them. We don't like it. So.
Yeah, apparently at the time, Elektra Records was kind of a weird deal. Like, they wanted to get rid of Motley Crue because they wanted more highbrow stuff. And Werman was like, you need somebody to pay the bills because the rest of this music isn't selling worth anything. And these guys can do it. And Mick said something too about it in one of the interviews I saw, like, screw Elektra. Like, we were the ones paying the bills and they still treated us like garbage.
Yeah, because Elektra didn't put a lot into the marketing of it, although those videos cost a little something. Not a ton, but a little something. Those are on Hollywood Soundstage. But look, Werman's got platinum albums and gold albums from Blue Oyster Cult, Twisted Sister, Striper, Poison, LA Guns, Dokken, Lita Ford. I mean, people who were big in the 80s. And I think doing this record is what got him a lot of those latter bands that I was just mentioning. So I don't know where Jeff comes into the picture here, but he made it, and it's not really a song so much. It's like an opener. It's like E5150 for Black Sabbath. It kind of melds into Bob Rules kind of thing, and it sounds like it's almost like a preacher giving a sermon about the end of the world and the children of the beast and stuff like that. It's an ominous thing that basically walks right into Shout at the Devil.
Yeah, and I was thinking of 1984 into Jump. Yeah, like there it's synonymous with that. It's almost like I understand it's two separate tracks, but it's seen as one. Like, you're not going to listen to In the Beginning by itself.
Hell, the blackest of hates, for he whom you fear awaits you. Now, many, many lifetimes later, lay destroyed, beaten down, only the corpses of rebels, ashes of dreams and blood-stained streets. It has been written that those who have the youth have the future. So come now, children of the beast, be strong and shout at the devil.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it melds right into Shout at the Devil, which is doom, shout.
Yeah.
Big cymbals from Tommy, big riff, and now we're off and running with Shout at the Devil. Obviously there's controversy on this song, right? Because you're talking about the devil. Right. Which gets everybody in trouble. They had the pentagram on there to try to create controversy, and it had to be taken out or put on the inside cover, and then you put the faces on the outside cover so you get into Target or Walmart or whatever.
And that's one of the things I never understood being a kid at that point in time with the PMRC was, what did you really think you were doing here? Because that's the thing. If you say, hey, there's a lot of crazy stuff on this, there's a lot of bad language, there's a lot of
it's very sexual, it's very violent.
Yeah, exactly. Well, of course I want that. What's wrong with you? There's no way I'm staying away from this. You're piquing my interest. So they were kind of misguided on all this.
Exactly.
But the thing is too, it's just an act. Like, I don't think anybody was really worshiping the devil. I mean, definitely not people that you wanted to model your life after for other reasons besides that. But it's an act. It's something to sell records. Like you said, the music isn't really that great. What else can we do to get ourselves out there? We can put the pentagram on there. We can talk. We can, throw devil in there. We can, children of the beast. And well, then, yeah, I've got to have this now.
Exactly. And you look at an article, you say, the Filthy 15, where are they now? Well, I mean, some of them were the biggest acts in the world. AC/DC, Def Leppard. It's like, yeah, it didn't hurt them at all. Judas Priest, and then the King Diamonds of the world who needed help in America, you just gave them the help,
Right.
You just put them up there. Like, kids don't know about them, but now they do, it's like, and you missed some, right? Like, I could have found a lot worse stuff out there, but, of course, they put Black Sabbath in there and Wasp, Fuck Like a Beast. Oh, you think that's going to offend people? Yeah, maybe. And it all came because Tipper was listening to her kids had Purple Rain, and eventually Darling Nikki comes on. Well, that's a pretty sexually suggestive song. And it's not even suggestive. It's pretty, in your face, like masturbating with a magazine right there. Oh, okay. Yeah. So she's like, this is filthy. I need to do something about this. So that's where the PMRC came from. But I understand it's got the shock value of saying shout at the devil. This is not a great song. It's a little slow down in the middle there. It picks back up. Mick shows off a little bit as a guitar player. Vince's voice is not amazing on this. I can hear Tommy screaming, shout, shout. And like, he's not really a singer, but he screams along in the background. There's not much to this song, and it's barely over 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Without in the beginning.
Yeah. And I think that's pretty much every track on this record. I don't think many of them are over the 3-minute mark. I think that the whole album tracks in at like 34 minutes, which is short for a long play album that they wanted full price for. I really don't like Vince's vocals on this one. I think he's trying to sing. I mean, he can sing high, but I think once he gets up into that register, it's really just kind of him screaming. But the beginning part is cool with the drums and, the riff, and what's coming. And then you're ready to shout at the devil along with the band in your room with the pentagram on the wall, and you're there to piss mommy and daddy off. And yeah, if they get mad, then you just put that on as loud as it'll go and make them think that you're about to jump off the deep end.
And it's like, okay, so you're like, okay, well, this is going to have all these satanic lyrics and stuff like, he'll be the blood between your thighs and then have you cry for more. He'll put the strength to the test. He'll put the thrill back in bed. What might run scared for the door, but in seasons of wither will stand and deliver.
Hopefully you had those lyrics in the liner notes, because it's hard to. There's a couple of things that you can pick out, but a lot of the stuff is very hard to discern in that register.
I agree. Yeah, it's not always easy to hear, and that's why the chorus shouted. It comes through so clearly, right?
Correct.
Danger, comes through clearly. So I understand why they started with that, but it's not their best effort. Now, moving to song 3, Looks to Kill. Now we're picking it up, man. I've always loved Looks to Kill. This is a killer track. It's got a killer riff. If not for Kickstart My Heart, I'd say this is easily my favorite Motley Crue song.
And I had not seen them live until the stadium show last summer. This song kicks ass live because the riff comes on and it, and Tommy's back there beating the drums. And yeah, again, we're back to the chorus is the title of the song, but that's the thing, is you're yelling it back. And yeah, I mean, it came out in '83 and we're still singing it in 2023.
Yeah, killer song, great riff from Mick. I like the chime gong in there via AC/DC, and then next year it would be Metallica. We put that into For Whom the Bell Tolls. And it's a good solo from Mick. It's, as far as all the stuff that he does on here, it's not real long, but it fits the song, I think, very well. Vince has moved on this. I mean, he's just not a great singer. He might be a great frontman. I mean, watch the movie The Dirt. They're not like, we got to go out and get the best singer we can. It's like, we got to get someone like David Lee Roth. It's like, okay, we need a blonde singer with some moves.
Mm-hmm.
Not someone who can sing, not someone who can write a song, but someone who will be out front and get the chicks all excited. And that's what they got, I guess. I always like the part, after the solo where they'll go, hey.
She's a razor sharp.
Well, I think you're right. They built this band for the live experience, for the the posters, and to see him out there with no shirt on, even though back then it was not a. I think he could have done a couple more push-ups, but that's just me.
Well, hey, he didn't have any fat on. You don't want him taking his shirt off now. That's for sure. Phil Collins, Def Leppard can take his shirt off. Vince, you keep your shirt on. Tommy can take his shirt off. Vince, keep your clothes on. Thank you.
They have a hard time having Tommy keep his pants on.
Yes, exactly. Great title. The song fades out. There's no end to it. It kind of fades out. But we got to talk about the video, because obviously MTV was huge in the career of Motley Crue. It may have been bigger later, for their next 3 albums, played more of an outsized role. But so here's the video. They're in kind of a, post-apocalyptic danger zone, right? There's rubble and stuff everywhere. And there's a bunch of scantily clad chicks kind of running around in a pack. And then here come the boys with big torches in their hands, herding them into this cage. And then they lock them in the cage. And then they make them watch their show, make them watch them play, right? Pretty cool. And they walk up to him, looks that kill. They got to stalk up to him yeah, here we come, ladies. Then here comes the warrior princess, hot girl shining her light down. She shines it on Mick's guitar. It goes from black to white, for his solo. And she frees the girls. And then the boys are all kind of chasing her, trying to get her, but they just can't get her, even though Nikki and Tommy have her backed into a corner. Somehow she slips away. Okay, how did that happen? So honestly, it's classic early 80s, because it gives you a little performance. It kind of tells a story, but not really. It's classic early 80s MTV.
And I think that was, I'm trying to remember now, when did Lick It Up come out? Because the concept was very much the same, even though that was more kind of in the day and this was at night, but it was the same thing. Chicks all over the place. They're wandering through the wasteland with random fires in different places. So I think that was it's probably just an excuse to get the chicks, but that was in the early days of MTV. There weren't a whole lot of ideas. They kind of just got recycled over and over again.
Yeah, and I think the girl who played the Warrior Princess, a model, Wendy Berry might have been her name. She was in Rat's Back for More video. So,
okay.
She's a video vixen.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations.
Although one thing Werman was talking about was he didn't really have, as the producer, you're not really there to tell people what to do. You kind of just guide them along and help them out. But one thing he did have autonomy for, he said, was tracking. And we've talked about this before. How do you put this together? And his deal was your number 1 song goes first, number 2 goes second, but then number 3 is the first track on the second side. So you and then you kind of backfill that stuff in there. So I don't know if that's true on this one, but just that idea of he came up with this formula of the tracking is very important to keep people involved in the record. And then you got some holes to fill in there, but that's okay, because you're just waiting to get to the next track.
Okay, so all right, so Shout at the Devil technically is the first track.
Correct.
In the beginning, the warm up or whatever, the intruder to Pretty Woman, and then the second is Looks to Feel. I think that's their best track. And it was their first single. They actually never did release Shout at the Devil as a single, probably because it's called Shout at the Devil.
Correct, because nobody would have played that at that time.
Right, and Looks to Kill I don't think it did real well. I mean, it 54 on the Hot 100, 12 on mainstream rock. Not bad, not great, but not bad. And it was backed with Piece of Your Action from the first album, which I actually like that song, Piece of Your Action. It's probably the second best song on there. So, it didn't break a lot of ground, but it got him some airplay, and it got him out there. That was released in January of 84. Okay. So then you go to the third track. Now, I say, if you don't like Looks to Kill, it's all downhill from here, guys. But the fourth track is Bastard.
Right.
Bastard. Not even a 3-minute song. This is what got them on the Filthy 15, because it's got violence, I guess. Some bastard screwed them over, so that they wanted to get back at it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is actually pretty good as far as everything goes on this album. At first, it sounds very new wave of British heavy metal. It's
with that drum intro.
Yeah, and a riff too, But here's the chorus you scream along to, bastard! Yeah. You can see teenage boys who are pissed off screaming, bastard! In their in their room, in their car, whatever.
Right, because it's not a record producer or whatever. To them, it's your teacher or the old man who's not letting you do what you want to do. So yes, you gravitate toward that. Plus, how cool is it to just be able to, hey, I'm just singing along with the song. What are you talking about?
Bastard, bastard. Look, it's got a driving beat. It's got a pretty good riff. There's just not a lot to it. Out go the lights, in goes my knife. Pull out his life. Consider that bastard dead. On your knees, please beg me, please. You're the king of the sleaze. Don't you try to rape me. So this is a record person who's screwing the band up.
Right.
Won't get screwed again. Whoa, bastard! But they love singing bastard. So I get it. Quick as a shark, beast has its mark. You can't beat the dark. These are not going to win you a Pulitzer Prize.
Right, but again, we've kind of tucked this in on the first side here. So we've got that, and then we can move on from there.
But following up the best song on the album with that, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good run here. And people like Shout at the Devil. So now your first 3 songs, you're off and running. You're doing pretty well. You kind of see how this might have sold 4 million in the U.S. and 5 million total or whatever it was, right? Okay. Now it's getting a little odd.
Yeah.
Now, the 5th song is God Bless Children of the Beast.
Correct.
This is not really a song. This is like a minute and 15 of Mick playing some pretty decent guitar. It's an instrumental for him, basically. At the end, he kind of says, God bless the children. Here's what I'm guessing happened. He was working on this, and it's light. It kind of sounds like a little bit of Close Your Eyes Forever by Ozzy and Lita.
Definitely heard that in this, yes.
And maybe even a little bit of Fractured Mirror from Ace Frehley.
Okay.
Although that ended up being like a 5-minute instrumental or something like that. This is, just over a minute. So they probably said, okay, well, that's nice, but that's not really a Crue song, right? There's not really a Crue song. There's no big riff in there. But they probably didn't have a hell of a lot more. So they just kind of put that in there. So that's basically what it is to me.
Yeah, you're right. It is only a minute and 30, very short. I don't think, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I don't think there's anything else in there besides the overlaid guitars.
Yeah,
and then the spoken word at the end, which I didn't think you even needed because you could just put it on there and just leave that off there. I can read the title, that's fine. You don't have to reiterate that at the end. One thing though, in looking at this on Wikipedia at least, everything is credited to Nicky, except for a couple of things like Mick wrote this, okay,
right,
and there were a couple. What else did he do? Red Hot, and that's about it. Although I don't Danger at the end. I don't think that's true. I'm guessing that Mick probably came up with most of these riffs.
Yeah, that's always the way I thought about it. Like, and in the movie, you see Nicky and Mick like sitting together to make the music.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, Vince, here's your lyrics.
Correct. Yeah. Vince was never, he's credited on Red Hot here and then Danger at the end. Well, and actually Knock 'Em Dead also. Knock 'Em Dead. But the story that, as I understand it, is that he was just kind of there to do what he had to do. And then it was back to partying. he wasn't there to really work super hard and put these songs together.
Right, and he did help with the lyrics on 10 Seconds to Love, and you can tell we're going to get there. We're going to get there. But if you take out In the Beginning, which is a minute 13, which is kind of the opening to Shout at the Devil, take out this God Bless the Children of the Beast, a minute and a half, you're not even taking out 3 minutes of the album. And now you've only got 9 songs, right?
Right.
So,
right.
And then next, to finish out side 1, is Helter Skelter. Now, this must have been the record company. I gotta believe it. They say, oh, Nicky always liked the White Album or whatever, but I don't think he really liked the Beatles much. Right. So I just got a feeling that they did release Helter Skelter as a single. I don't think they released it in the US as a single necessarily. And there may have even been like a picture disc or something to it, but it didn't, I don't think it did much anywhere. And honestly, it's not a very good picture.
When I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide. I get to the top, and I'll go right. I get to the bottom and feel again. Well, feel again. Do you don't want me to love you? I'm coming down.
But then go back to what you were just saying. So take that out. Take Helter Skelter, take In the Beginning, and take God Bless Children of the Beast out. And now we're really short.
We got 8 songs.
Maybe that was like, if we've got 8 songs, like we can't, that's not a record.
It's not even half an hour.
Yeah. We need something else. And you're right. Maybe somebody from the record company said, Helter Skelter was the big, Charles Manson, and, maybe we can make a veiled connection there. That would work. We need another track to put on this record. We can't just have 28 minutes or whatever it was.
Right. I know. And look, Aerosmith did Helter Skelter. Is it as good as Aerosmith's? No. Like you heard, he quote Seasons of Wither in the previous songs. So it's like he was obviously an Aerosmith fan.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, Aerosmith did it. I'll give him points for heavy. It's heavy, but none of it's very good. Mick's got a kind of fury-filled solo, but it's not very long. Vince is awful. He's terrible.
Well, okay. So, but here, you can actually compare them to someone. The rest of these are originals. Well, the rest of these are original songs, right? So you've never heard anybody else sing "Shout at the Devil" except Vince Neil. You have heard Steven Tyler and the Beatles sing "Helter Skelter." So now you can see, that's not really very good. The rest of it sounds okay. They actually do a pretty good job making it theirs, but the vocals are horrible.
Horrible. And apparently there's a picture disc. They did a picture disc for the single. And it's a photo of a fridge with the title written in blood on it, which, was that something at the murders? Did they write that on the fridge?
Oh, jeez.
I don't know. They at least wrote it on the wall. I don't know. But that's what they were trying to capitalize. They weren't trying to do a great song. They weren't trying to do a tribute to the Beatles, like there's a Manson connection, let's do it. But I got to believe it wasn't necessarily. Okay, and that's side 1, folks. And if you didn't like side 1, stop now. Because if you think Red Hot is the 3rd best song again, but that's how it starts off. But is Red Hot starts off side 2? What are your notes on Red Hot?
Well, let's see. I said I like the drums at the beginning. The "All Right" from Vince. They don't need that. We can just listen to the music. It's fine. I thought this one kind of sounds almost like a demo, like an unfinished track.
Yeah.
But the lyrics are, I don't say the lyrics are better, but the lyrical structure seems a little better on this one. And in looking at this, it looks like this was Six Mars and Vince Neil on this one. So I think it had a little more depth to it. The song is not great, but you can see that I think there's a little more going on here than in some of the other tracks.
Yeah. All right, so I'm kind of with you. The thumping bass, the steady drum beat at the beginning are pretty good. It kind of has a ballroom blitz kind of thing to it.
Yeah. It like I said, it sounds like there's a little more structure here. They're trying to actually have a song where the other ones are just kind of like riff, chorus, riff, solo, back to the riff. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. But this is a straight ahead rocker. They do pump in a little fake crowd noise at some points, which is kind of funny. The solo to me sounds like he's doubling himself, which would be incredibly difficult to do live. And it's not exactly blistering. I think the song's pretty weak. I don't know that this is the third best song of it. I would put Bastard ahead of it for sure, and maybe some of it. We'll kind of get to it, but I'm surprised that Werman thought this is the way to start off side 2.
Hi, I'm Paul Stevenson from Vintage Rock Pod, and you're listening to the Ugly American Werewolf in London.
Moving to the second song on the second side, which would be the second U.S. single, Too Young to Fall in Love. It's actually pretty good.
It's not a bad track at all. I think the drum beat that starts in, that's pretty cool. And then you go into the riff, which is a little more complex, I think, than a lot of the other tracks.
Yeah.
And this one had kind of a funny, like kung fu. They're in Japan or something, and they're, going through the streets and, beating people up. And there's a story to it. It's a little slower. I think that's what kind of kills this one as far as the rest of the album, and maybe why this wasn't number 3.
Okay, yeah, that could be why Werman didn't pick it as number 3.
Right.
Yeah, because Red Hot, first of all, it's called Red Hot. Secondly, it's kind of got that straight ahead thumping thing. You know? Yeah, so I get it. But I think they made the right call in releasing this as a single, which they backed with Take Me to the Top, also from the first record. 90 on the Hot 100, 26 on Mainstream Rock. I actually like the backing vocals this time. They're not just screaming along with Too Young to Fall in Love. It sounds like almost like singing.
Yeah, and I would say the same thing for Vince. He's not trying to get up in that super high screaming register. It's more, it's still not fantastic, but it sounds better. You can understand what he's saying a little better. He's a little clearer on these.
You say our love is like dynamite. Open your eyes, it's like butter and ice. Where you're killing me, your love's a guillotine. Why don't you just set me free? Too young to fall in love. Too young to fall in love.
Too young to fall in love. Love. Yeah. And it's real solo this time on this track. But yeah, we got to talk about the video. So it's like, I would say they're in Chinatown. They look more Chinese than Japanese.
Okay.
And they're just kind of hanging out, posing with a couple of Chinese or Asian girls kind of tending to them. Then they juxtapose. There's a girl in the street and she's being treated poorly. And so she's taken in, and a little Chinese kid sees that. He runs and tells Nick. And so then they go to kind of rescue. Yes. So they go through this place, they go into the back, and even though these people are like well trained and have swords and weapons and stuff, Motley Crue just beats the shit out of them, knocks them out of the way. And then they get to like the big wig, right? Like, okay, we're going to take our girl back. But it's like, no, she's happy to be here, to be his mistress, or it would be a geisha if she was Japanese, but, kind of be his courtesan. And doesn't say anything. She just kind of looks at him like, I'm not going anywhere. So I'm like, okay, fine, we're out of here. And then Tommy beats up one more guy on the way out.
Just because. Yeah,
like she's okay being with the pimp dude. Okay, we're just going to split. The video might be better than the song. Just for its pure early 80s-ness and the fact that they're beating people up. And I just kind of like, visuals are so important to Motley Crue. It's like just as important as KISS. I feel like the video was like they were made to be seen more than they were made to be heard.
Right, and I think I like the end part where they're kind of just posing, and you say to yourself, "Well, Mick's wearing he's still shorter than Tommy and Nikki, and he's wearing giant heels in this thing." So yeah, and just the costuming and the story in quotation marks Yeah, I think it was a way to bring them into the visual MTV medium and get people that way too. Because I mean, yeah, maybe I don't own the record, but I see it on there and think to myself, oh, what's going on with these guys? These are interesting looking people.
Yeah, exactly. This is not like the kids I see in school, right? So yeah. Mm-hmm. And apparently it was the Grand Theft Auto. I know you play a lot of games like that. Like you're
correct all day long.
You're a felon and you're out like murdering people and stealing stuff. It's amazing they can make those games. But okay.
We were worried about Punch-Out back in the day.
Yeah, give me Super Tecmo Bowl anything. All right. So then, third song on the second side, Knock 'em Dead Kid. Well, you got to love that title, right? That fits right in.
Right.
With everything else they're doing. And it's a fairly good riff to open with. Obviously, I never knew the story, but it's about a fight that Nicky got into with some bikers who just happened to be undercover cops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then ended up I guess according to Nicky, they just beat him pretty badly, including messing up his face. Yeah. So it's interesting that luckily that didn't have any kind of lasting effects on him. But yeah, can you imagine that? You get into this and then it turns out they're cops and then they're really mad at you. And then again, how these people are still alive, I don't know.
It's an aggressive song with a shout along, knock 'em dead. Mm-hmm. But there is not much to it. And Mick's solo is sloppy and just kind of all over the place. Not like sloppy in a bluesy way. Sloppy in okay, but you can move your fingers fast. It can't make any sense.
Yeah, I've got solo sounds out of place. I also have WTF is he shrieking about? Because I don't know.
Knock 'em dead. I mean, there's just not much to the song. I'm back and I'm coming your way. Well, now I'm supercharged. Might just explode in your face. Are you talking to a cop or a chick? I don't know.
Take it easy.
Yeah, I don't know. What's that all about? Knock 'em dead. A star-spangled fight. It's going to be a USA fight.
Yeah.
I heard the sirens whine. My blood turned to freeze. You'll see the red in my eyes, or take my disease. It's the opposite of good. It's just not that much. Great, pretty good riff. Obviously, knock 'em dead. Everybody screaming along that. Correct. We're going to get into that. It's not made for me. It's not made for a 50-year-old guy. It's made for a teenage dirtbag who's sick of living with his parents. It's basically Nicky 10 years before this, right?
Yeah, and famously, I don't know if I knew that at the time, but famously, he came from I think he was out on the street for a while. He was in the foster care system, kind of had a rough upbringing or a rough childhood. So yeah, this kind of fits in with how he grew up.
Yeah, his father, left his mother, didn't want anything to do with him, even though he had his name. He's Frank Ferrano Jr. Dad didn't want to have anything to do with him. His mom is kind of, one of those women who's like, the only way she's going to get by in life is to have some man take care of her. Mm-hmm. So she's kind of slutty and, likes to party and will do, whatever it takes besides work, to kind of get by. And he got sick of it. And in the movie, he shows he basically stabs himself, calls 911, is like, my mother just stabbed me, so he could get out of her house. But then, yeah, you got to go in the foster system, which is no bed of roses, That's his life. It's amazing. It's amazing he didn't die before he got the Motley Crue. It's amazing. Correct. He kind of did technically die in Motley Crue. He did OD and was dead. They revived him. Mickey Six had died in mine, ambulance, cha-ching, there he is. They're showing the people like us who have this kind of lily white, cushy lives, how dirty and gritty life can ruin.
Mm-hmm. And I remember having a conversation with, I can't remember who it was, but they were saying, oh, Motley Crue sucks. They're the worst, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, they're actually kind of the best. Especially when you think, when you sit down and you say, okay, what does it mean to be a rock star? You sell 1 million records, check. You did every drug on the face of the earth, check. You were with any woman that you wanted to be. You lived in big mansions. You made a lot of money. You still have money, and you're still out on tour today. They check every single box. So, if you want to say, oh, they're not that great of a band, they had the secret sauce put together. They're still out there doing it. They're still popular. They can still draw big crowds even today.
Yeah, they're still rock stars. They just aren't musicians.
Well, and that's the, I think, what's his name? Gene Simmons was saying that. He's like, there's a lot of guys that aren't very good, but they're famous because they can be a star. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of guys that can play their instruments technically perfect that never make it because
they personality.
Correct. Yeah. And I think that's the thing that comes through in this one is the personality of the band.
That's right. So let's move on to song 4 on the second side, 10 Seconds to Love. These are the best sleazy porno lyrics on the album, no doubt.
My note on this one is probably not something you want to brag about, just saying.
It's not like it's only going to take 10 seconds. It's kind of like, okay, now we're 10 seconds away from the end of the show, if you will.
Not like this is going to be the greatest 10 seconds of your life.
Well, probably not. Probably. I hope for their sake. And I kind of doubt it. As much practice as they all seem to have. But yeah, no, it's more like, all right, 10 seconds, start the countdown, because as soon as I'm done, I'm out of here, leaving town. So I'm jumping on the plane and I'm done. But I mean, at least it changes the riff a bit between parts. Like you say, it's like riff, chorus, solo. This one at least has a little bit of change in it. And the solo it's a bit flashy. It's not amazing, but it sounds like most of the rest of the stuff that they did on the album. This is one that Vince actually contributed lyrics to, and you can tell if it's straight up about having sex. Then Vince can contribute. It's just wait, honey, till I tell the boys about you. Bring a girlfriend, maybe bring 2. I got my camera, gonna make a star out of you. Let's inject it. Let's inject it. Pull my trigger, my gun's loaded with your love. I mean, you don't have to be a genius to figure out what they're talking about. Was it hot for you? Did you fire this round? The second I'm through, I'll be leaving this town. Well, you're not going to get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame writing songs like that, but it's not that bad. And then, pretty decent little song. Okay, after the solo, it's like Tommy and Nikki doing some singing, talking, whatever, and then Vince doing some talking. And then they shout along in the back before it's back to the big bombast with Mick. So it's kind of goes up, kind of comes down a bit, comes back up. I would listen to it in the context of the album. I doubt I listened to it elsewhere.
Yeah, and this is the first time the drops out to just bass and drums. So you were saying before it's kind of hard to hear Nikki play the bass on this, and at least this one you can hear. Yes, there is a bass track, and it that kind of breaks the song up a little bit too.
Yeah, and then they wrap up the album with Danger again. The title, got to have danger in there, right? So some ringing picking from Mick to start this, not just a big fat riff, so that makes it a little different, and it's a little slower to start.
Yeah. Vince is trying to emote on this one.
Yeah, I know. He goes into the lyrics and I can't escape, and it builds, Then the riff gets heavy on danger, It's a little different from the rest. It's got some heavy building towards the end. Kind of talk about Hollywood danger, like this is what we live, and there is real danger to this. You can get beat up, you can die, you can OD, you can get killed and murdered, and so can girls straight off the bus trying to become starlets. There's danger in this lifestyle. And I think that appeals to, a lot of the people who were listening to this record.
Well, and especially if you were someplace like, you're talking about the kids in Indiana, you kind of live in a small town. And I mean, even I lived in a town it was close to New It wasn't New York City. And you kind of build this nasty, sexy appeal to Hollywood. Like, you knew that, like, ooh, it looks nice, but it's got a very nasty part to it, underbelly. And so that kind of that led to the lore of, oh man, that place sounds awesome.
Yes, but it's taken more lives than it's made, I think. That's for sure, But, again, the lyrics, I mean, me and the boys made a pact to live or die, no turning back, scarred for life, all my best friends died, lost my mind, it made me hate. This is Nicky's life,
Right. Yeah.
Tattooed lies, distance eyes, Hollywood, been 10 long years, tears and fears, the end is near. Yeah, I mean, and he did die, technically. So, but I mean, the song, hey, it's a good way to wrap up the album. Danger, talk, warn about that kind of stuff. Now, there are some other songs that they did during this period. Black Widow is one that ended up getting onto that Red, White, and Crew best of.
Okay.
I Will Survive is one that didn't get put on the record. I think Mick and Nicky did it together. I don't want to go into them too much, but it's like, they weren't good enough to make this record. Weren't that good. There's some other songs that maybe became different songs later, but, just to kind of take it on its merits. I don't love the album. There are some good songs that stand out here, but, they only sold 1 million or so the first album. This was 4 million in the U.S., and then Theater of the Pain sold 4 million, and then Girls, Girls, Girls sold 4 million. And then Dr. Feelgood sold more than 6 million U.S., and I think more than 10 million worldwide. That's obviously their big one. But that was also after they cleaned up and got Bob Rock.
Correct.
And did an incredible tour. I mean, they toured the hell out of that record. They have burned themselves out. And honestly, they didn't do a whole lot that was great after that. This is the record that kind of set them up for success. I mean, if you sold 1 million and then 1 million more, that's still good. And in this kind of music, Quiet Riot would love to sell 1 million and then 1 million more, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Dio would like that 1 million, then 1 million more. So it was like, this set them up for the success they would then start to have with Theater of Pain getting more stuff in the top 20 instead of just the top 40, and then Girls, Girls, Girls. And obviously Dr. Feelgood was the big one. So I don't know. What's your take on the album as a whole?
Well, and it's interesting to look back on it now. You saw what they did with Dr. Feelgood, and that was kind of the record that I think introduced a lot of people who had kind of heard of them before, and then they kind of worked it backwards. This was definitely it still had it needed a lot of polishing, the songwriting that they would eventually do. And you mentioned bringing Bob Rock in didn't hurt. But I think this one also kind of opened up the whole Sunset Strip sound. Also, there were a lot of bands that made it because of this record, because record companies said, maybe Elektra wasn't super excited about them, but there were other record companies that said, we want this. This is the sound of the future. We want bands like this.
Right. Yeah. We got to get your album to sound a little bit more like Motley Crue.
Correct.
Yeah. You hear, people talking about it now. Oh man, they set the tone. They made it so awesome. They're da-da-da-da. I'm like, what? There's some of this that sounds bad. It's not that great.
But in 1983, this was more groundbreaking than I think we give it credit for now.
Yeah, it was sleazier.
Yeah.
It was just not what you heard on the radio, that's for sure. And so, to bands of that ilk who were trying to make it in LA, I mean, Motley Crue was making it in LA, right?
Right.
I mean, we talked about our show with Jay Scott on Metallica's Kill 'Em All, which came out in 1983. They were supposed to open for Saxon at the Whiskey, but they were too big to do that at that point. So they had to go do a much bigger gig. And then Metallica got one of their first big gigs opening for Saxon at the Whiskey, So, but that just shows you Motley Crue was starting to take off at this point. They're starting to explode. They're starting to get big. They're on MTV. They're doing big headline tours with like KISS and Ozzy Oxbourne and stuff like that. Whereas Metallica, here they are. They're kind of underground. Nobody knows who they are. They're not on MTV. They're not on the radio. But they're starting something that's going to be way bigger.
Right. That would last for, 7 or 8 years after that. I mean, I understand that once grunge came in, that pretty much shut everything down. But
Except Metallica.
Except for Metallica, yes. But they were on top for all of those records. They just kept getting bigger and bigger up to Dr. Feelgood.
That's right. So yeah, that decade of decadence, it's exactly what it was. It paid off in a huge way. They sold like 100 million records around the world.
Yeah, and that's why they're still flying private jets today.
Yeah, well, yes, but they're on a stadium tour as a co-headline act. Sometimes Def Leppard plays last, sometimes they play last. I think musically they can't hold Def Leppard's job.
Correct.
But, live, as long as they pipe in all the vocals and pipe in most of the other stuff, they still put on a show. But, Metallica's doing stadiums basically on their own, whereas Crue is playing stadiums, co-headlining with Def Leppard, and you get Poison, and you get Joe Jett, and you get another new band. So they need the package.
And could Motley Crue do 2 separate shows within 2 nights? No, they could not. They've got one.
Barely do one, yeah. That's it.
Correct.
But hey, look, I'm glad Crue's still going. I'm shocked that they're still alive. I'm shocked Nick's still alive, even though he's not in the band anymore. Apparently, they're permanently banned from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I'm like, you know what? That's BS. Because they're famous. It's not like nobody knows who Motley Crue are.
Right.
They're super famous. And they sold 100 million records. Did LL Cool J sell 100 million records? Did the Talking Heads sell 100 million records? And you couldn't wait to put them in.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a popularity contest, and it's one person who definitely controls that. But yeah, I think at this point in time, they don't really care. They're doing what they need to do. So I think they're okay with not being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but I think they want to. I think they want to be, and I honestly, they probably deserve it. From their appeal, from their cultural significance, from their record sales, and from their longevity. They're playing stadiums 4 years after this record comes out.
Yes, and pretty much never look back.
Well, that, folks, is our take on Motley Crue's second album, Shout at the Devil, released in 1983, with the big hits Looks That Kill and Too Young to Fall in Love. Obviously, if you listen to the show, you know it may not be our favorite album of all time, and that's okay. We still love Motley Crue. We still love what they mean to rock and roll. We still love the role that they have to play. But I believe their talent wasn't really in musicianship or songwriting so much as it was creating a spectacle, getting headlines, right? Getting people to look at them, getting people to notice them. Some would say for the wrong reasons, but like they say in Hollywood, there's no such thing as bad publicity. And that is a fact, my friends. And Motley Crue may be the epitome of that. They've all gone to jail, they've had drug problems, lots of divorces, but also lots of platinum selling records, lots of tickets sold around the world. And this was the album, honestly, that really kind of set them up for the great success they would find later with Dr. Feelgood and the tour that ensued. And it's really part of the reason why they're still going today. Now, I apologize that some of the audio was a little screwed up there, folks. Look, I've been moving a lot. We've got a lot going on. I apologize for that. I don't love the fact that I might have sounded like Charlie Brown's teacher throughout some of that episode. But I appreciate you listening anyway, and I think for that you deserve a reward. So you ought to go now to rarevinyl.com, use the code UGLY, and save yourself 10%. And they got some great Motley Crue stuff there. I saw a great picture disc box set of the first 5 albums that would be an amazing addition to your Motley Crue collection. So go to rarevinyl.com, use code UGLY, save yourself 10% on that or any other Motley Crue or really anything that catches your eye on rarevinyl.com, our amazing sponsors. So as usual, folks, we want to know, did we get something right? Did we get something wrong besides the sound? Did we miss the point? Did we leave out your favorite part? You've got to let us know. You email us. It's uglyamericanwerewolf@gmail.com. You let us know the bands, the albums, the concerts, the DVDs, the books, the rock properties you want to hear us talk about. And as usual, we want to thank you for downloading, subscribing wherever you get your podcast. If you're thinking about it, folks, what would be huge for us is for you to give us a positive 5-star rating wherever you get your podcast. It just helps us find more rock and rollers like you, helps us climb the charts, and helps us find more guests to come on the show. You can also support us not only by going to rarevinyl.com and using code UGLY, but going to our shop on my Shopify. You can find it on our Twitter page at @ugly_werewolf. Follow us there. Follow Action Jackson at ActionJack72. You can see us on Instagram. You can see us on Threads. You can see us on YouTube. Somewhere on Facebook, we're there. And we appreciate you being part of the show. Next week, we've got more special guests, more albums to review that you're going to love, hitting some big anniversaries, all sorts of fun stuff happening at The Wolf. We're really proud of some of the stuff that we've got coming up, and we appreciate all your support. So make sure you download and subscribe to not miss it. And until next time, to all you rock and rollers all around the world, be cool and stay safe.